So, obviously, again, tonight's blank is tempted. Jesus was tempted. We want to understand how Jesus was tempted, and there's a great story about that in Scripture. It'll be on the screen for us, too. It's in Matthew chapter 4, and I want you to follow along with me on the screen. It says, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, 'If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread.' And Jesus answered, 'It is written, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God.' Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. 'If you are the Son of God,' he said, 'throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone.' Then Jesus answered him, 'It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test.' Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. 'All this I will give you,' he said, 'if you will bow down and worship me.' Jesus said to him, 'Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only.' And then the devil left him, and the angels came and attended him." Now this is a great story of temptation in the Bible, especially concerning Christ, this person that we share our lives with. And there's so much to be said about it, but I just want to barely touch on it. Study the Scripture at home in your quiet time. I think you'll get a lot out of it. But I want you to get this. What is more tempting to a starving man than food? I mean, Jesus is out in the desert. He hasn't really eaten much of anything in 40 days. And Satan comes and tries to tell him, "You can turn these stones into bread. Just do it. Just do it. I know you want to eat." But he doesn't. Then Satan tempts him to prove himself. He says, "Throw yourself off this building and prove to everybody that you're the Son of God, because you won't die." And I think, guys, we can relate to this especially. When somebody brings a challenge and asks us to prove ourselves, there's this temptation to just do it. Show everybody, this is what I'm made of. This is what I can do. And you know that temptation was huge for Christ, but he didn't do it. And then finally, the last temptation that he comes across is something I think we all can relate to. Money, stuff, wealth, power. Satan offers him all that, but at what cost? If he would just bow down and worship Satan, I mean, that's not going to be worth it for Jesus, and he won't do it, obviously. He doesn't give in to any of these temptations. And on just a little side note here, I want you to get this. When Jesus was tempted, it was when he was at his weakest. He had been out alone, hungry, starving even, for a long time, and that's when Satan swept in to throw this temptation at his face. And you better believe that's exactly when he'll sweep in on you too. When you're at your weakest, that's when temptation is going to come, and what are you going to do about it? That's just a side note. Jesus was tempted. We have this example in Scripture, but I don't want you to think that this is the only example. Think about Jesus' life. This is one little story in the Bible about how he was tempted, but think about what his life must have been like. He was tempted by the same things we were tempted by. Think about this. Don't you think Jesus ever saw some hot Persian lady and thought, that's pretty hot? Now, I know it sounds wrong to talk about Jesus in this way, but the same temptations that come at us came at him. And there, I guess, were hot ladies in Bible times. I don't know how you judge hot back then. Maybe the one with the softest leg hair. Because there's no shaving happening. Maybe the one with the shortest armpit hair, the one that doesn't look like she's smuggling 2 squirrels. I don't know how you judge hot in Bible times, but the truth was they probably never even saw that much. They have these ankle-length robes that they wear. And I'm sure that when ladies walk by, guys were like, "Man, check out the ankles on that broad. So hot." I don't know what hot was, but I know that hot was there. And Jesus is a man. And temptation falls on any man in the same way. It was at Jesus' fingertips. He could have done that. He could have had that. That temptation was there for him just like it's there for us. Now think about this. Like we talked about last week, Jesus was rejected. And one of the groups of people that rejected him the most were Pharisees and the teachers of the law, the religious leaders. And don't you think that Jesus was tempted at some point to just lay a holy beat down on those guys? Just put them in a little holy headlock, give them some noogies, maybe a couple of these jokers, knock their stupid hats off, and really make them understand you don't mess with Jesus, I think I would have been hugely tempted. If somebody was always, constantly trying to tear me down, there's a temptation to lay a beat down. Jesus faced that too. Think about this. There was alcohol back then. Don't you think that Jesus had to have been somewhat tempted to do something like that? It's a little bit of a release, a stress relief for him. And don't you think he would have wanted to just, get out of life for a few moments? Just get drunk enough that he doesn't have to worry about the problems of the world so much anymore. And with all the weight that Jesus was carrying, I got to think that temptation was there for him too. And not only that, but you think about what we mentioned last week of Jesus dying on the cross with all the people that had rejected him, putting him up there. He's hurting for something that he never did. People are laughing at him, mocking him. His mother is crying, and everybody's turned against him. They stab him in the side with a spear. And all this time, he's got the power of God at his fingertips. He could call down fire and angels to destroy everybody and just say, you know what? I'm going to end it. I don't deserve this. I'm not going to have it. I'm just going to blow it all up. I know that temptation was there. I know he could have done it, but he chose not to. It's because he knew who he was and who God created him to be. And he lived his life facing temptation, all the same temptations that we do every day, lying, stealing, cheating. All those things were on him every single day, and yet he stayed steadfast. He overcame. He never gave in, not once. That is huge. He lived a life of almost torture, never giving in to anything so that he could be perfect for you. I want you to get that. There's a reason that this is important. It's because we need to know Jesus was tempted the same way that we are, because he took it for us. Every time he said no to a temptation, there had to be that thought in his mind, I've got something greater to do. I have to love the world. I have to be better. I have to make better choices. And that didn't make it any easier. Again, he wasn't Superman. It wasn't super easy for Jesus to say no to this stuff just because he was the Son of God. It was still hard. So why is this important? Hebrews 4:15-16. You'll see it on the screen. It says this. For we do not have a high priest, which means like a spiritual role model, who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. But we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he was without sin. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. He faced it all so that we could have confidence in the face of that temptation. That's kind of, we're getting to the second part here. I think you understand the Jesus was tempted part, but now it's time for the I will be part. You will face temptation. You will be tempted. It's out there, and you probably be tempted before you even get home tonight. It's happening. How can you have that confidence? How can you face temptation with the confidence that the Scripture tells us about?